Hello, my fellow YouTubers. This is Roy back again. Looky what we have here. A quartz crystal that is clear. Let's get in there and make sure it's clear. Clear. Right now it just got fired up. And you're asking yourself, what are we looking at? Looking at an experiment that I think ties in Leedskalnin that was back in 1919. And I built this apparatus and it's on right now, so I'm a little nervous about it because it is some serious business here. So this experiment was done in 1919. And this is what I have to work off of. And he calls it the gravitation nullifier. Shown in this illustration, the quartz crystal may be seen supporting a 55-pound weight. Dr. Kowsky is shown in top coat because of the temperature at which experiments were performed. This discovery was made about 6 weeks ago in newly established central laboratory of somewhere in Poland. While experimenting with constant, very short wave carried by means of quartz resonators, a piece of the quartz which was used suddenly showed a clearly altered appearance. It was easily seen that in the center of the crystal, especially where the constant temperature not exceeding 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So schematic wise, this is the crystal. These are the electrodes that are on top and bottom of the crystal, and the electrodes that are on either side of the crystal. And here is the original. He has it set up as a weight, so counterbalancing. This is the crystal that's being counterbalanced over here, and that's what we have set up here. We got some counterbalancing. I'm using this weights over here to counterbalance the crystal. I just fired it up now, and I'm gonna post a video later on tonight on these rocks, these crystals. This is a crystal here that I dug out of my yard, which is pretty close to Ed's coral rock, which is down there, which we're going to experiment with the crystal first, and then we're going to experiment with different crystals and different rocks, and we're going to use Ed's rock, and we're going to see if we could float Ed's rock by using this technique. I'll go over the technique when I post the video tonight, but I got 2 drivers running. The plan here, end game, would be to have excite the crystal lattice inside this crystal. We're going to excite it, and by exciting it, we're going to be able to stretch the ether. And by stretching the ether, we're going to get there by using these 2 drivers. One driver is going to a flyback, coming out of the flyback into a 1.5, 21 kV, 1.5 nanofarad. We're just starting off of capacitance in between these plates. These outside plates are your capacitive plates. get my chicken stick here and see if we got any action. So they are active. There's a shield that's going on in the middle between the ports. Then over here in our driver, we're coming out of our driver and going into a little, explain it by showing you the connections. The connections are these. So basically what you have here is a single plate. It looks like it's some type of alloy. And on the back side of it, you got another plate. So it gives you 2 wire connections. So I'm connecting the 2 plates itself together and running that out of the driver. So the center pin of the driver is where the 2 outsides come together, and the 2 outsides are opposite poles. So when you look like here on the flyback, here's a metal ring, and you're making a magnetic field and you're switching the magnetic field. Basically it's coming out DC out of capacitors, but it's acting like AC where it's rotating. So what's happening here is on the outside of these 3 connections that we're talking about over there, on the magnet, on a pole magnet here, one side is a positive, one side's negative, and the 2 ends connected together. So you're taking the wire and you're driving it, and you're creating a positive field on this part of the bar. On this part of the bar, you are taking it and rewinding it the opposite way. So this is the negative. So you're making a strong magnetic field that loops around the whole bar, but it creates half to be positive, half to be negative, and it's rotating and switching its poles. 2 are tied together. So we're doing the same concept over here coming out of the driver. So on top and bottom of this crystal now, it's got those probes. And on those probes, they're flipping and rotating positive, negative. So we're using electrostatic with a high current rate of change with the, we'll call it AC, high frequency. So we're both dialed into the same frequencies with these drivers and with the capacitance. So we're gonna have to figure out how do we make these adjustments, which I haven't thought of it yet. I'll figure it out. On tonight's video, we'll post a thorough whole through the studies of Dr. Kowsky, how he came across levitation, how he came across the fact that this crystal can grow 20 times its size, and we're rattling the cage and we're cutting through, say, the ether, which is resilient in itself and will always snap back, and we are actually found a way to make the ether react to our action. So you have action and reaction. The same way you have electrostatics with a cloud and the ground level, there's an action and reaction. So whatever the bottom polarization of that cloud is, the ground will be the opposite. So the ground will push away the charges and throw them down bottom, and have the charge the opposite as a dipole between the cloud and the ground. Here we're doing the same thing in the crystal, except for this time we're coming out and we're going to put a bunch more capacitors there and get those nanofarads up, and get the capacitance field to where it's fully electrostatic. I'm sure if I put another plate underneath it and put sawdust, you'll see the sawdust flying. So the field around it right now is in play. This whole thing is in action, and it takes hours for there to be some reaction, maybe even days. There's really not much writings, paperwork on this test, but this test to me, you can see right now that crystal is clear. It's got scratches on it. It's been around for 8 years. I have it, and we are now exciting vertically and horizontally. And this is a push and pull me between these positive and negative plates of aluminum plates of that capacitor, which is electrostatic at its finest. So it's making a turbulence, and the pulsating up and down, the switching of the poles. So the top is the positive and negative, the bottom's positive and negative, and it's flipping its poles. We're exciting the ether now, space in itself. Guys, leave your comments. Hopefully you enjoy this topic. It does relate to Ed Leedskalnin on levitation, what we're going to do right now. There's a counterbalance. I'm hoping as this runs and keeps running, not only will we start to see opaqueness, but we will start to see a elevation to where it starts to come up a little bit. And that's why I have this set up, so we can start taking measurements of where it is and will it start going up. The bigger the crystal gets, the lighter it gets, and the more it pulls up to balance itself. So if it balances itself up to the electrostatic field always, and the more weight you pull on it and pulls down to the writings, that's what he did. He started adding more weights and it brings it up. So having the electrostatic field, the push and pull me going horizontally, and the changing of the fields of high speeds vertically with this crystal, and a lot of crystals have the same similarities in lattice, so it works on most of crystals, is from what I read. And the one more thing I'll add to this before I bounce off is, in his writing, he says, by a special arrangement of excitation of the crystal in various directions, it may be made to stretch or increase in length. It will not return to its original size. Testing it on a balance showed that after connecting the crystal to the high tension currents, the arm of the balance on which the crystal with electrical connections rests rose into the air. So that's what we have here. And the other note to Dr. Kowsky's writings is quartz and some other crystals of similar atomic nature have the properties when exposed to potential excitation in definite direction of stretching and contracting and using rapidly changing potentials. That's the rapidly changing potential vertically and horizontally, even though this is electrostatic. The crystals will change the electric waves into mechanical oscillations. So we are doing an experiment of taking and changing electrical waves into mechanical oscillations. This piezoelectric effect was also shown in Rochelle's work with salt crystals, by which they may be made into sound producing devices, loudspeakers and microphones. One more note, and we're going to bounce off. I'd like to give a shout out to Jacob Lewinsky, and who helped Dr. Kowsky in 1919, and Dr. Kowsky for this experiment that was done in 1919 and put away. You don't hear this about this much. So while experimenting with the constants of very short waves carried on by means of quartz resonators, a piece of quartz which was used suddenly showed cleared, altered appearance. it was very easily seen that in the center of the crystal, milky cloudiness appeared, by which gradually developed to a complete opacity. This experiment also was done by Dr. Messier. I think this was 1929. In lines according to the quartz crystals subject to high frequency and electrostatic fields, currents clearly showed air currents which led to the construction of a little motor. I don't know much about the motor with Dr. Messier, but he is the professor who, the connection between 1919 and 1929 with Dr. Messier is the fact, the temperature. He was the one that used cold oxygen, liquid oxygen, and he realized that magnets could be suspended over that. So you have a superconductor. So we are kind of dealing with a superconductor kind of experiment, but they were just focused on radio waves at the time. Dr. Messier was focused on superconductors. So this experiment was done with 50 degrees or less. Going to see right now how this starts to work, and then I do envision this into a vacuum chamber. So one thing we know, as we go down negative pressure in vacuum, if you were to drop water in there, it would vaporize away. So that means water does not exist in negative pressure. But if we put it in positive pressure, it heats up. We go negative, it vaporizes. So I think in a vacuum chamber, this experiment would be exciting to see. And it seems like I just seen this just go up a little bit. I swear I just seen this thing pull up a little bit. And it's on. So stay tuned for tonight's video. It'll be more detailed, and I'm excited to see some results. Do a couple changes with the capacitance. I want to bring the capacitance level up higher, and also I want to definitely try this stone that I found in the dirt around my house, which has its own crystals. And this stone here, which was on my fireplace, that these pieces in here, you put a knife on them right there, you see that, and they scale apart. You can put a razor knife on them and shave them to be like little fine pieces. And I have some different sands from different beaches of Florida. This is 99.9% quartz down at the Captiva Island, where they say a meteorite hit the Gulf and incinerated everything, and you had quartz. That's all quartz at the beach. This is our beach up here in St. Augustine, Jacksonville area. It's a little darker and moister. Have all these different quartzes, different color quartz. Have some rose. I have a clear crystal round ball, and we have this quartz crystal, which would be the first subject, the quartz, because that's what it's about. It seems like it's up a little bit more now. So if you look at the right there is the middle or screw, and we were below it. It seems like we're rising a little bit on its own. Remember, it's gonna be pretty interesting. The two drivers are just perfect harmony and resonance. And you really got to give a shout out to this guy right here, the gravity nullifier experiment done 1919. The gravitation multi-lifter is shown in the illustration. The quartz crystal may be seen supporting a 55-pound weight. Dr. Kowsky is shown in a top hat and top coat. Temperatures, cold room. There's the crystal. There's his angle like I have here to make a weight. There's his weights right there, hanging down. He's using his two plates. Look, he's got the weight tied down right there around the crystal. And it's got the 2 plates there, which are the electrostatic plates. And luckily I got a few years in me and for some of our beautiful troubadours of experiment and learning about them. And so for me to be able to replicate this, it shouldn't be too hard for me. We know we're at short wave, high frequency, and I can control the capacitance. Leave your comments. Hopefully you guys love this. So look at the level now. You can see we're definitely higher than the pins. And right now, we are clear. Peace out.